Do you want to be on a camera? You probably should be. Oh, there's my mug.
Unmuted. All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're really excited to be presenting this wellness program for you, both here in the office and those of you that are attending from home. Today's program called Manage Your Microbes. I want to thank Matt Mall for setting all of this up and making all the arrangements. Thank you to Jordan and the IT team. I think you'll be blown away by all of the cameras and microphones and video and audio and PowerPoint we have planned for you. Phyllis and her team for setting up the cafe. We are, for those of you present in person, we have a drawing. You must be present to win. So there's some note cards to put your name on. Grab a copy of the handout. We will have the handout available electronically after the program. We'll share that with you. Again, we are very excited to have Chef Laura Steck back with us. She presented for us in our old office in the West Building, and I'm sure you will learn a lot today. So thank you again.
All right. Hello. Now, do you guys say FBM? Do you call yourself FBM? Hello? No, you do not call. Oh, you do? You don't? Well, Farella, Braun, and Martel plus Martel. It's often tied to Farella. Hello, Farella, etc. Laura Steck in the house, Chef Laura. Glad to be here today. Returning. I should have checked to see the last time we were here. I think it was the breakfast class. Didn't we have a breakfast wellness fair years ago? Yeah, pre-pandemic. So yeah, yes, there was a pandemic. Wonderful to be here today. We're doing a presentation called Manage Your Microbes, and we're going to have a short presentation by PowerPoint about some of the current research that is happening, both at Stanford, which I have actually been honored to be part of. Stanford University is one of the leading researchers in the microbiome. And then we'll have a hands-on demonstration where we will be tasting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 things, I think, that all have to do with fermented foods. So let's begin. All right, presentation time. Oh, here comes. We have so much IT here. It's kind of fun, actually. All right, here we go. Thanks to Jordan for doing the IT today. And I'm coming to you from Portola Valley. And work have been in Farella for at least 3 times, I would think. Yeah, so it's good to be back. Okay, where are my notes? So manage your microbes. Microbes, interesting. Humans, it's been said, might just be a mere vessel for the propagation of bacteria. Maybe we've evolved to just help them out. Isn't that a fascinating thing? But as the science of the microbiome, which are the bacteria, fungi, there are many different types of species, but primarily today we're going to be talking about bacteria. And that live in us and on us. And there's a lot of things we're learning about how they're affecting our health. And one of the things we're learning is about how they might be affecting our weight. So with that, I just want to take you on a quick tour of the progression of our problems with obesity in the country, actually. Starting with 1980, what is this, 6? I have to clear out a few of these. No, can't do that. Don't have that. Anyway, so this is a map from the CDC. And the year is 1986, if I'm reading it correctly. And you'll notice that there are different colors on the country. And this is to show the amount of obesity, which the CDC started to record in 1986 for the country. And we're going to go up till 2020, I think. And you'll notice here, the darker colors are always what you should be watching. The darker colors will be, the maps change as the years go on. But you'll notice here that in the darkest color, on the map, this is 10 to 14% of the population in 1986 was considered to be obese in that state. The lighter blue would be less than 10% in 1986. And then on this particular map, white means no data. So we're going to see the progression as the amount of obesity grows. 1990, 1992, we have a new category, 15 to 19% of the population in those states are considered to be obese. 1996, 1998, we have yet a new category where over 20% of the population is considered to be obese in those states. 2001, yet another category, over 25%. What state is that? Who knows? Very good, it's Mississippi. 2003, 4. Now I think 2007 they changed the map, but now you'll see it's always the darker color that is the most. So now we have over 25% of Mississippi. What are the other two states? Anybody know what those? Very good. 2010, yet another category, which is 30%. And we've skipped some of the years. And again, they changed the maps. Now they totally changed the map. And again, so let me see, go back from, so look at the dark color to the darkest color. So within, what is that, 2010 to 2014. And have they introduced 40%? No, now it's 35%. The darkest color is the percentage of population. And here they introduce a whole new color. The darkest color is 40% of the population is considered to be obese in that state. And here we are at 2020. That's a little squirrel down there. He says, when I learned what I was eating, I realized I was nuts. Right. So what are we eating? Well, that's a story for another class. But basically, when we are eating, not only are we feeding ourselves, we've realized we're feeding the microbiome. And this is an old graphic, a couple of years old, so I'm sure it has changed. But you'll notice there are many different kinds of species within this microbiome of bacteria. They say that humans have anywhere from 500 to 1,000 different kinds of species in our own body. And the most fascinating thing about it is that we are more them than us. We have more cells of something else in our body than us. And so this is an extremely complex, very individual and intimate relationship that we have with the bugs that live in us and on us. So one of the people that I got a chance to work with is a gentleman called Justin Sonnenberg. I'm just going to grab this book here to show those in the room. He's one of the lead researchers in Stanford, and I got a chance to work on a program. We'll learn more about it 10 years ago. And what Sonnenberg says is the reason why this is so hard for science is we have hundreds of species in our body, making up trillions of cells that engage with many of our bodily systems that are different for all of us, that change over time, and that excrete chemicals into our body. Basically, after they eat, they do what we do, right? They let out a little bit of gas, and those gases not only affect things like inflammation, which is one of the largest things they're studying, and inflammation leading to all kinds of diseases in the modern day. But also some of those chemicals can break or move past what they call the blood-brain barrier and then get into our brain. And so the other main thing that they're concerned about in relationship to, there's so many things they're concerned about, but two of the main issues are inflammation and Alzheimer's. And how, because it's so different for everybody and it changes over time and there's thousands of species, how can we ever figure out what is good for what? Now, some of the microbiome do very interesting things like light paths. We may see our cities lit by microbiome in the future. Some of them are fluorescent and they actually, I think this is, what does it say in Cambridge? Yeah, the lighting, using microbiome to light things. But for us, personally, and as far as eating goes, where they are important is microbiome are in our soil and help everything happen in our soil. Certainly, they make us bread. The bread we're eating today is natural sourdough. Beer, cheese, pickles, wine. The microbiome involved in metabolism and digestion. Certainly very important for the immune system, might be the main thing for the immune system. And then also we realize that they're starting to affect our emotions. Depression can be actually tracked to the chemicals that are being let out by these bugs, as well as potentially our weight. And they're disappearing. And that's the problem. Diversity is disappearing. Diversity in our cultures brings us strength. Diversity in our culinary brings us strength and excitement. Diversity on our planet makes us healthy. And diversity within our own bodies is becoming extremely important. And why are they disappearing? Well, one, many of us know it's the overuse of antibiotics. They're smarter than the antibiotics. C-sections are a very large part of what's going on with the establishment of the microbiome. We are not going to get into that much more beyond this, but what they now know is that when the baby passes through the vaginal canal, it gets bathed in the microbiome of the mother. And the majority of the microbiome is in our digestive system, our colon, and and in the vaginal canal. And if the baby gets taken out of the stomach, it doesn't get that whole swash of digestive microbiome. And this is so now they're actually practicing in hospitals if there is a C-section, to swab the mother's vagina and swab the baby with it, because this could be a very serious problem, and maybe one of the reasons why a lot of our children are running into food allergies and things like this. Sanitizers and shampoos are definitely disappearing our biome, as well as just the fact that we're just less diverse. We kind of do the same thing all the time. Many of us don't go outside, go camping. We might, it's great to have a dog and go out in the garden. These are all ways we're a little too clean, is basically what they're saying. Now, this is an interesting article. It's still online. I've got the hard copy. It came out in 2014. It is from the New York Times, and it's an author who decided to, instead of taking a shower for 6 weeks, I think is what the duration was, no shower for 6 weeks, but instead spray something on your body by a company that's still in business 10 years later to add, not to remove microbes, to add microbes. So instead of taking a shower, you just spray yourself with some kind of thing. And it's a funny story. I encourage you to read it. You can look at it online. The company is still in their third stage of funding. So this may be the future. Showers may be gone and we may be just spraying ourselves because we want to keep microbiome on our body. And that's better for things such as eczema, which I just got last year, not only dry skin, but in us and on us, we're having issues associated with the lack of diversity in the microbiome. Oh, and with that, speaking of dirty, what do you think is the dirtiest? Oh no, before that, I'm going to say the biggest issue that they discovered from the thing that's killing it most from our shampoos and our cleaners is sodium lauryl sulfite. So look at your shampoo tonight, and if you see sodium lauryl shampoo, get rid of it, because that's the thing that's killing the microbiome the most dramatic. All right, so this is the, all right. So when we look at microbiome, again, in soil, we want to just look at this picture. I have soil here. This is a picture from the Rodell Institute. It's some of the work we did for my book, Cool Cuisine, Taking the Bite Out of Global Warming, which is over there. You'll notice you have 2 soil samples here. The one on the right has only 4% more microbes, bacteria, basically carbon in the soil. And look at the difference between, 1% carbon looks like the soil is just dead. And only with 4% more carbon microbes in the soil, it is dramatically different. And of course, these are the things that our food is coming from, which is one of the reasons why it's important to have healthy soil, so we can have healthy food, because the plants actually have roots. Well, we'll talk about that in another. Let's see if it's. Oh, um, let me say, in a teaspoon of healthy soil, how many microbiome do you think there are? 1 billion. So a lot of stuff going on there that we can't see. Now, this is what I was saying. The plants have hypha, or these roots that are extending down to the little mycorrhizal fungi down there, which are actually fungi. They are considered to be microbes. And this is how the plants do it. And that's corn root, and the corn has what they call hypha, and extends out from the root, and then it connects with the mycorrhizal fungal in the soil. And it says, hey, I want you guys to bring me a little phosphorus. I want you to bring me a little iodine or whatever. And the mycorrhizal go in the soil, find it, and bring it back to the plant. And that's how it happens. And if it's not in the soil, it's not coming to the plant. And again, that's why it's so important to have healthy soil. Now, when we're thinking about, we want to think, oh, maybe we should get rid of these microbes because they're all dirty, but actually, no, maybe we want to have them closer to us. But when we're talking about dirty in the kitchen, what do you think is the dirtiest thing in your house? Right. Did someone say sponge? Yeah. So even dirtier than the toilet bowl, they say, is your sponge. So that's just an FYI as far as microbiome you might want to pay a little bit more attention to. Now, the thing about that is be careful about putting it into, like, half washing it or putting it in the microwave, because they say you can microwave the sponge, but then only the strong survive. The really strong microbes will still be alive even after they get zapped by the microwave. So probably what I use, I was going to bring it. I actually have a washable sponge now that I use. I got rid of those. And that's what I encourage you when we want to get rid of microbes. But back to our own human self, this was an interesting study that happened probably 5, 6, 7 years ago with COVID. It's hard to tell. And basically, microbes, some are junk food junkies, some like health food, right? The microbes are basically eating what we eat. And they did a study where they took mice that were overweight and mice that were thin, and they put these microbes into humans. And the humans that got the microbes from the mice that were overweight became overweight. And the humans that got the microbes from the mice who were thin did not become overweight. So this is, what is it? Washington University School of Medicine discovered, yeah, germ-free mice. They put the microbes from the people into the mice. Germ-free mice gained weight after receiving gut microbes transplanted from an obese person, but they did not gain weight from a lean person. So science is starting to think there is a whole different situation that's happening, and maybe some of it might have started at the moment of birth. Back to that C-section story. If gut bacteria are proven to balance blood glucose levels, alter fat storage, and affect hormones that make us feel hungry or full, then the wrong mix might set the stage for obesity from the moment of birth. So it's good for us all to learn, because I know we're all interested in our weight, and maybe some of us are fighting that fight, the good fight, and have some excuses now. Exactly. So this study, 2014, it's 24, was a study that I was involved in. It was a study with Stanford University. We cooked the same thing for people to eat. We called it a microbiotic bowl, and the foods are based in a certain standard American diet. And we made enough food for, I think there were 35 people to eat the same thing, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They could eat as much as they wanted to throughout the day, but it was the same food for 30 days. And they wanted to find out whether or not it would change the microbiome. And unfortunately, what we found out is that it didn't really change the microbiome. Because what's interesting about a microbiome is that we can have times when it changes, like, even when you kiss someone, you exchange microbiome. But all of us have pretty much a static thing. Pretty much the microbiome is developed in the first 3 years of life. So in order to change it, it has to take a long process. And what they've realized in the American diet is the American diet, which has gone from whole foods to basically all this processed crap that you and I eat, has been a long-term experiment. 40 years it's been going on. And because of that, it actually has changed our microbiome. It's been a long, over-generational study as our food system has gotten worse. And so if you're trying to change your microbiome quickly, it's not going to happen. It needs to be over time. And just feeding 35 people the same food for 30 days, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, didn't really have much of an effect. These are foods, some examples of some foods that are good. There are two basic things that we want to learn from this class. One, if you want to increase your microbiome, you want to start eating more fiber. I'll talk about that later. And then two, you want to eat more fermented foods. And we're going to talk about that later too. Plant fibers are important because the majority of the bugs live in our colon and they eat the food that we don't digest. The standard American diet is digested in the small intestine. It's mostly refined flours and sugars. So the only thing that gets to the colon, to the majority of our bugs, are the undigestible plant fibers that don't digest in the small intestine. And if you don't eat plants, if you don't eat vegetables, if you don't eat fruits, nuts, seeds, grains, I'm not talking cheese, I'm not talking meat, I'm not talking sugar, I'm talking plants. If you don't eat enough, guess what those bugs start doing? They start eating us. They start eating the carbohydrate-rich lining of our intestine. And modern day diseases like colitis, uh, another one that I can't, Crohn's. These things, they weren't around before. Why are they around now? Science is trying to figure out. So foods to the rescue. A lot of these we're going to be tasting today. Sauerkraut we'll be tasting today. We're going to make a smoothie with kefir and yogurt. We got some sourdough bread here. We've got natto, which we'll surprise you with. Yeah, these are all good ways to encourage a better microbiome. On your handout, if you haven't had one, you can get one over there. There's a difference between fermentation and pickling, and we want to realize that difference. Fermentation is what we'll taste today in my Laura's homemade sauerkraut. The sauerkraut's been brewing for 3 weeks for you. It is a long process, and the lactobacillus starts developing, and that's what we want to eat more of. They say about a half cup a day is fermented food. I mean, real fermented, something that's actually fermented. But then pickling is also a lovely thing. Today you'll be eating pickled carrots, Laura's pickled carrots. They too have been pickling for a number of months, but they have a little bit of fermentation to it, I think. But there is a difference, and it's important to know because we're in the fermentation that we get these added yummy lactobacillus. And it also gives us a complexity of flavor. So Sandor Katz is an interesting guy, wrote a great book on fermentation, and he describes fermentation as the artistic, enlightened relationship between man and bacteria. Again, we are more them than us. And let's now look at a few foods we can have to increase our microbiome. You can turn that off. We'll have a moment here for a brand break. Okay, we got the camera up. You can see the cutting board. All right. So what we've got here, I have a plate of foods. And the first thing on that plate that you will be tasting is sauerkraut. Now, I've been making sauerkraut for years, and I've gotten older in that time. And one of the keys to sauerkraut is the best thing to do when you're making sauerkraut. You have a recipe for easy, one with water and one without water. And if you cannot add water to your sauerkraut, you will have a better flavor because water has no flavor. So water is never really something we want in our food. You know, if you make a pasta salad for the potluck, and when you're draining the pasta, if you don't zorb up that water that's at the bottom of the colander, it's going to get in the way of your salad dressing and and then when you eat your pasta, you're like, why doesn't this have any flavor? Well, it's because you didn't clean up the extra water, right? So water is a tool in culinary and should always be, we want to use it to do something, but we really don't want it around too much because it gets in the way of our flavor. So I used to do the one with water because I used to cut my cabbage in chunks. And you can cut your cabbage any way you want, but I found that not only was the flavor uh, diluted, it's been getting too hard for me as I age because I have inflammation to massage the cabbage. So if you start making your own sauerkraut, and it's the easiest thing to do, and I hope that you do because this is kind of the best way you can get a half a cup of fermented vegetables in your diet. I encourage you to get a mandolin because this will make your slicing of your sauerkraut very easy, and it also makes the squeezing of it very quick and effective. So I've got my mandolin here. I think I'll put it on 2. I have a few different. You can put it on 3. You can put it, thicker, thinner, whatever. And some cabbage here. It can be red, it can be white, it can be anything. I'm going to remove that because it'll be kind of hard. This guy's always good. Don't throw it away. It's the protector for your hands. And then super, super fast to do it. You don't need a mandolin. You can do this with a knife. I was doing it with a knife for years, and all of a sudden I started using my mandolin. It's just the easiest thing. So if you get into pieces like this, you can either fold them and do it, or you can cut those, however. And I have a nice mix of sauerkraut. And then for 1 head of sauerkraut, it's about a tablespoon to 2 tablespoons. So let's say, tablespoon and a half. So an average head of sauerkraut, some of them are huge, but basically they're about this size. And a tablespoon to a half, 2 tablespoons I've got kosher salt here. Sprinkle it into your cabbage. And this is where you start massaging it. Now, if you use the mandolin, it really breaks down quickly. We don't have a lot of cabbage here, but I am sure, especially if I use 2 hands, that I can actually start getting some moisture because I can start feeling it. I can already feel it, and here we are. All right, for that little bit, I already have moisture. Now, the moisture is important because if everything is underneath the moisture in your fermentation, you will not run into problems. You might get a little white mold on the top, but you can remove it. No one has ever been diagnosed with food poisoning due to fermentation that was done right. So it's like one of the safest things you can do as long as you keep things under the water. So water is really important. Moisture is really important. If you don't get enough moisture from the cabbage, that's where you can add a little bit of brine as the recipe suggests. Now, what do you do once you have your cabbage massaged? Well, I have gone into now this little guy, which is a cool crock that has enough space for 1 cabbage, but not too big. Like I used to have a big crock that didn't have this kind of lid on the top, but it was just too much for 1 person. I think I found this at Rainbow Grocery. Certainly you can buy it online. This particular brand is called Yazoo, and it has a water channel that you fill with water or brine to also just kind of make it safe. I put my cabbage in here. And then I have some weights. And I think the weights, I never brought them out. They must be over there. So if you would like to see, they're just little weights and they go inside here and that pushes down your mix. Now, another thing I use to push the cabbage down so that it goes underneath the water, I just have a wooden, this is something from a Japanese cooking, it's called a suragogi. But anything would be, not a knife necessarily, but a steel could do it. But, this is really nice if you get into it just to smell. Once the cabbage is in here, you start spitting it with this, and then you get more moisture, and then you put the rocks on top, and then you put this guy on top. I'll put a little water in that channel. I'll put it someplace cool. And it basically sits there for, 3 to 5 days. And every day you open it up and see if there's any white mold. And if it is, take it out. But if things are underneath the moisture, you really don't have any problem. And then, about 2 weeks, you would let it cure outside of a refrigerator and then you would start tasting it. And if you like the taste, put it in the refrigerator, which will slow down the fermentation. It will still be fermenting, but slower because of the coolness. And if you want it to be more zingy, then let it outside. Now, if this seems kind of intimidating and it's a little too much, you can use any kind of jar you want. I could put my cabbage in this guy. Same kind of thing, regular old jar, fill it up, fill it up so that you've got enough moisture, push it down. And then you can just put a cloth and a rubber band on top. But I just picked up, and I haven't used it yet, these things called pickle pipes. Now, this is for a larger bell jar, which I don't have with me. But when you put this on and then you screw the thing on top of it, it actually lets the air out by itself. So it's fascinating. I haven't used it yet. I think I got this at Rainbow Grocery too, but it's another option if you are just looking for something smaller to, to ferment in. You can ferment in anything. Again, the whole idea is you have to have your cabbage below the water. As far as weights go, one of my disciplines in the culinary world is macrobiotics. And Cornelia, who was my teacher, used to use rocks. She used to wash the rocks, just rocks from outside, and she would wash them in the dishwasher. And then she would just use rocks on top of her, fermenting agent, whatever she was fermenting. Another option you can use is fill a jar with water and put just a jar of water on top of it. Water is very heavy too. But anything that you can ensure that things will be below the moisture, you will have no problem. All right, so that's sauerkraut, and that's one of the things that we will taste today. Now, conversely, we also have for you some pickled carrots. I just have my pickled carrots here. I brought them in. I didn't bring all the jars, so I didn't have to move them all up. But these are not fermented. You have the recipe with you. This is basically half part vinegar, half part water, and maybe some seasoning, salt and sweet, and maybe some garlic or onions or whatever. And you can get a nice flavored pickled vegetable, right? You can pickle any vegetable. You can pickle fruit. You can pickle grain. We know that. We make sourdough bread, right? So a different option, not fermentation, just for you to taste, but also the addition of the idea that variation in our food causes us to eat more. And that's so important. I'm going to turn around and say it again. Variation causes us to eat more. The junk food industry knows this. That's why there are 15 flavors of Doritos. I eat the nacho cheese Dorito and I say, yeah, I really like that. But oh, hey, here's Cool Ranch. So I eat the Cool Ranch and I'm thinking, God, that's really good, but it's not nacho cheese. So then I nacho cheese and Cool Ranch and nacho cheese. And you know what I'm doing? I'm just playing games with my brain. I am turning my brain on by different flavors. And if we can do that with healthy food on our plate, we can do the same thing the junk food industry can do. We can, basically, when you're cooking and you want to cook healthfully but flavorfully, think about what the junk food industry does. Things are sweet, salty, and fatty all in the same bite. Maybe a little acidic, right? We got that? And maybe possibly even some bitter. And if I can bring that into my plate in different ways, I'm going to eat more. And one of the ways that really gives us variation is by adding either a simple pickle or even the next step, which is fermentation. So if you don't get into the fermentation process, I encourage you to consider pickling, which might be considered a little easier, just for the fact that when you eat that, it's going to be like, whoa, I will have more of that cauliflower then because that tastes, you want to entertain your brain, and that's how you can eat more healthful food. Make sure you've got the flavors. All right, so our first thing we're going to make today is a kimchi cream. I'm going to put it on top of a roasted cauliflower. I don't even know if I have a recipe. Do I have a recipe for this? I think I do. Oh, yeah. I say 1/3 of a cup kimchi and 1/4 cup veganaise. Now, you can make your own kimchi. Oh, this doesn't, I bought it, doesn't have a label on it. I did not make it. I bought it, but you can make your own kimchi. Kimchi is basically spiced cabbage, right? Spiced sauerkraut, very famous dish, and also fermented. So sometimes it's a little too strong for people, but boy, does it have that zingy flavor, right? Really fun flavor that we want to incorporate into our foods. And so this is a fun way to tone down that flavor and maybe derive its zing without being overpowered by its zap. Now you can put it into yogurt, you could put it into mayonnaise, but what I have for you here is something called veganaise. Veganaise is a vegan product like mayonnaise. And I've always enjoyed it. It's been on the market for years, about 1/4 cup. But again, anything, even a cashew cream, you could put it into a homemade cashew cream. That would be fine too. And then I'm just going to whirl it up. This is all backwards because of so I got to. Simple, easy, and it can go on to any roasted vegetables, grilled vegetables, meats, whatever. Nice. So we'll put that on our cauliflower at the end of class. That's one. Also on your plate, we have something really crazy. I don't know if you have guts to eat it. We'll have to see. I've got a lot of strong flavors, strong smells for you in this class. It's something called natto. Has anyone ever had natto before? We have 2 people. Oh my gosh. I can't believe all you guys know natto. So natto, I should have brought the little wrap. The only place I've ever found natto is frozen in the Ranch 99s and the Asian markets around town. They come usually in 3 of these little stupid styrofoam containers because that's all it is. You take it off and this is what it looks like. It comes with a little mustard, a little like soy sauce. Those are the seasonings. And then it comes with this, which is the bacteria that has been growing. It's actually Bacillus subtilis. And natto is soybeans that are inoculated with Bacillus subtilis. And it's fermented. So it's a probiotic. It's good for heart health. It has a lot of vitamin C and also good for digestion. If you like blue cheese, you will like natto. If you don't like blue cheese, you probably won't like natto. It's a strong flavor with a lot of strings. And then you just take these little packets or not, good in protein, right? And put it into the natto. Why would I eat it? 1, it's fermented. 2, I'm looking for other sources of protein. I'm always looking for other sources of protein. Chicken's fine, beef is fine. We don't want to eat too much. We all know that. So we really have to eat more beans, I think. And beans, of course, have fiber. And fiber is what we need to feed the microbiome in our colon. So just mix it together or season it any way you'd like. And then we also have a little bit of that put onto your plate. And those strings again are the Bacillus subtilis. So that's natto for you. And on the plate, well, let's see. We could pass that out. No, should I keep going? We could pass the plates out now, or we got two more things we're going to make. What time is it? Should we wait till the end of class? Wait till the end of class. Okay, so we'll do that. All right, so now we've got, I'm going to make a little salad for you. A very simple salad with another fermented product, which is called umeboshi. So umeboshi plums are the least sweet fruit. I learned about umeboshi plum when I was a student at the microbiotics school. These plums are pickled into what I call is the best kept culinary secret. Umeboshi is a flavor I should have brought the vinegar with it. It comes in different, you can either buy the plum, you can buy it in a vinegar form, or you can buy it in a paste as we have, which are basically the plums mashed up into a paste. Very unique flavor. Kind of like it's a pickled plum. So it's sweet, but it's pickled in salt, so it's salty. So it already is winning because it's got that sweet, salty thing going on, and our brains are going, yeah, right? Variation causes us to eat more. And we're just going to make a quick salad dressing with it. So I'm going to put, I think I say 3 tablespoons of ume. And I'll do maybe, yeah, I'll start with 2 because I haven't. And then we're going to add in some tahini. What is tahini? Peanut butter made from sesame seeds. So tahini is a great thing to use if you have nut butter allergies and you're looking for a creamy sauce. I make appetizers with tahini. I make sauces with tahini. It's lovely spread onto, toast and bread. Add a little honey to it. We're going to add some lemon juice to that. And for many years, I never had one of these squeezers, but I think they're fantastic. And we're going to dice up an onion. We're going to learn how to dice an onion. So I've got an onion here. Always good to take these little things off. They're getting in the way of any recycle or composting that's happening. So just try to remove that before you compost. And the problem with an onion is that they have acids that fly up into the air when we cut, and then they land in our eyes. I can't talk and I can't cut. But if you handle your onion less, you will have less frying. So this is the way you can dice an onion by handling it less, because most people have no system in cutting their onion, and that causes them to touch the onion too much and have those acids affect them. So here I have my onion cut in half, and there's always a part of the onion, this isn't the best part. It doesn't really have here, but there's usually you can see it a little yellow knobby. That little yellow knobby you want to put in the back. This onion doesn't have it very dramatic. And then I'll take my knife and I want to cut the onion through, not all the way, about 3/4 of the way through. Because what I want to do is maintain something to hold the onion in back. And I can put as many slices as I want into this onion, remembering that the more the slice, the smaller the dice. Now I take my knife the opposite way and I cut down the opposite way, not all the way, about 3/4 of the way through, again establishing that back to keep the onion together, to just make it more simple. And what I'm left with is a checkerboard. So all I need to do now is determine the size of my dice and cut straight down. Well, and I should have done it. And I have a diced onion, and they're all approximately the same size. Why is that important? Cook the same way. When I get to the part that I hadn't cut, I flip that guy down. I'll cut that into a julienne, and then I'll cut that julienne into a dice. Now, what I could have done is do it a little bit smaller because for this recipe, I want to get a little small. We're just making a salad dressing, and I need a few tablespoons of onion. So now we can look at how we actually dice something like an onion. And you'll notice a couple things. First off, I've got my hand on top of my knife to help that pressure, right? And I have my, well, what I want to do when I'm dicing is make sure, if I was slicing, that often when we're cutting, we want our fingers underneath and our fingers tucked in and our thumb tucked here so that this becomes our block and we don't chop our fingers off. But in this situation, my fingers are should be nowhere near problematic to being cut off. But it is important to look at the other hand as well, because I've seen people when they're cutting, that their finger is on top like this, which is really strange. So you'll notice what I'm doing is holding my thumb on one side of my knife, basically using this side, this finger to hold that. So now I have a very strong, control of my knife. So none of this. And you want to be, the knife is your hand, so you don't want to be way back here either on the knife, right? Kind of people do this kind of thing. Ugh. You want to be on holding the knife. I use cheap knives. I get these $5 knives at a store called Kamai, which is on Clement Street, in the city. It's across from the Green Apple Bookstore. And I don't like the heavy knives from like Wusthof and things like that. What do we got? Okay, good. So a couple tablespoons of white onion in this, lemon juice, tahini, umeboshi, and then we need a little water. This is hot water, right? This is cold water? Cold water. So what does it say? I think it said like 2/3 of a cup of water, 1/4 cup of tahini, 2 tablespoons minced onion, 3 tablespoons umeboshi, and then of course adjust to your own taste. I didn't add any salt to it. I might add some salt, but I'm going to add a little bit more water for a salad dressing, but I want to taste it before I add too much because maybe I want to add lemon juice, and I don't, lemon juice and water, of course, are both liquids. So we want to, when we taste, we want to make sure we don't have too much water in it because we might want to dilute it more with lemon juice. Ooh, that's got a zip to it. Maybe a little salt, maybe a little more lemon. When you're tasting, when you're eating or cooking, you want to taste. I want to go through this in my head and say, can I taste the lemon? Can I taste the umi? Can I taste the tahini? Can I taste the water? No. Go through the ingredients and think about what's in it and think about if you can taste it. And if you can't taste it, then you add more. And if you taste it too much, then you got to figure out what to do, right? So we're going to just toss that with some lettuce. It's very simple salad. I'll do that after class. We'll mix it together. And we'll finish up with the last recipe so we can get you all out of here on time. So those two will go together. And what you'll do is you'll pick up your plate, you'll eat it, you'll come back and you'll get your salad to taste after that. And then lastly, I wanted to make something sweet because you've got a lot of flavors going on here. So can you see the blender? Okay. So lastly, I'm just going to make you a smoothie. Give you something, it's called I call it a keto smoothie. There's no sweet in it. You can put anything you want in it. Certainly you can sweeten it up, but people are into keto. So I got some kefir here. This is what we're showing you off. A little bit of basically liquid yogurt, right? We'll put some of that in our smoothie ability. Say what now? Are yogurt and kefir the same? Right. I would say first off, go with something that doesn't have any sugar in it if you can. And then it's a question of, I don't know if anybody's got that exact science going on, but what I tried, I got the 100% grass-fed, regenerative, organic probiotic. Are there more microbiome in that? I don't know. But kefir is one of the foods that they say that the science is showing is helpful. Now, say it again. Well, yeah, I mean, the sugar is basically, sugar's a whole story in its own right. A little sweet's not going to kill you, and I don't think it's going to kill the microbiome. But, I think that's something, if you're really looking for health, probably less sugar is probably the direction. And of course, this is a keto smoothie. So then I'm introducing you some a pea milk. Pea milk, here, let me pour that in, is made from pea, and it has high protein and it has a low carbohydrates. So pea milk, plant-based milk, 8 grams of protein per cup is just something people use. It's got less, carbohydrate than milk does. So that's interesting. Little blueberry in there to give us some sweet. I'm going to put in some almond butter. Excuse me. To give us some body. I'm going to put a little flaxseed because this is definitely fiber, right? Fiber. We want fiber in our smoothies, fiber and everything to feed those guys. Here's a little chia seed. Maybe I'll put a little bit in that. Chia will start making it thicker. And then I'm going to put in some kale. Oh, and then lastly, to sweeten it up, like a leaf of kale for one smoothie. Lastly, I'm going to put in to sweeten it up a little bit. Now I saw it. I have some stevia here. Oh, there it is. Stevia. Stevia is a leaf that you can either get like in powder form, or you could get it here in liquid form. It is a naturally sweet plant. We'll put a little bit of that in there to give us a little keto. Oh, and we need some ice. Some ice. Oh, and good sizes too on these ice. Okay, and I'm just going to whirl that baby up. See what we get. Make sure that's down. This is plugged in. Start low. Let's just taste it. See what it needs. Nice color. Maybe a little more almond butter. I'm going to put a little more stevia in it. A little more ice. A little more ice because we want ice. And we'll roll that guy up. And of course, you can adjust this accordingly, however you choose. Okay, so what did we learn today? We learned that we are more them than us. We learned that we have 70 to 90% of the cells of other species in our bodies. And if that doesn't blow you over, how do I keep these guys happy? Is really the question we all need to ask. So we learned that there are two basic things that the science is showing, and lead scientist Justin Sonnenberg in Stanford University studying this very much. I'm excited to see where AI takes the science because the science is too complex for the human brain to understand all the connections. So we're really going to see some advancement in this field of research with AI. But what they're saying is fermented foods, half cup a day, and more fiber in your diet are two of the most important things you can do unless you've decided to have a baby. And then it is don't get a C-section. And if you have to get a C-section, make sure they swab your baby on the way out the door. We made sauerkraut. We talked about sauerkraut. We have different ways that you can make it at home. You have recipes for that. We learned the difference between fermentation and pickling. You'll also try some pickles. We made a kimchi cream that I'm going to put onto your plate on top of the roasted cauliflower. We're going to try something crazy called natto. That's like blue cheese. And if you don't like it, don't worry. And then we have a salad. You'll come get your plate. You'll come back and get some salad with an umeboshi tahini dressing. And then to just kind of clean your mouth out from all those crazy flavors, we got a little bit of keto sweet, which of course isn't really sweet, but it's sweet, made up from stevia, almond milk, blueberries, pea milk, kefir, ice, and chia and flax. So thank you everyone out there for coming. We really appreciate the time that you spent with us today. Sorry you can't taste it. And for everybody here, thank you for coming. Remember that one of the most important things we can do for our own health, as far as food goes, is also the most important thing we can do for the animals and the most important thing we can do for the planet. When we eat healthy, it's the best foods for the animals and the planet too. So let's change the world with great tasting food, shall we? Together we can make a great meal and a great difference. Thanks for coming. Oh, and I'll take any questions if there are any questions. And if not, come on up. Do we want to take any questions from the audience or anywhere?